Hello everyone and welcome back to another Arknights Endfield video. It's been about 6 months since Arknights released, which means we are halfway to the anniversary, but that doesn't mean we can't celebrate. Because in this video, we are going to be exploring Endfield's half anniversary update, Homecoming, which you can be a part of by using the link in the description. It doesn't matter if you've been playing for 6 months or if you're just starting, because everyone can experience this new event. This event is one of the largest updates Endfield has ever done, and it includes a new major story quest, new areas to explore, a new boss, new factory updates, new improvements for both the system and player, and plenty of new rewards, which include up to 35 free pools and a free 6-star weapon. But that's not all, because there is also a new operator that we will be doing all of the new story content with, Arcane. We start our journey into the update with a brand new area called Yinglong Pass. So, looking at the map, Yinglong Pass is bordering the current Wuling city and the next new area that we will talk about later. In the most spoiler-free way that I can explain this, the northernmost area is the dangerous area with all the blight, while Yinglong Pass is basically the defense between the blight and the rest of Wuling. I'm going to avoid talking about most of the plot because I would like to keep the story spoiler-free, but I will talk about the newest character, Arcane, as we explore this first area. Arcane is a very unique operator for Endfield, and we will see more of her solo potential in the next area, but for Yinglong Pass, I wanted to keep her on a optimal team to showcase what she can really do, since that's what most normal people will be doing with her. She is an artsy character, and while most other characters in this archetype just have these little robots floating around them, Arcane has them attached to guns, which she uses for her normal attacks. These are solid normal attacks, which range from her guns shooting lasers to even riding into enemies like she's on a surfboard. For her skill, she makes a grid which explodes after a short delay. It does good damage, and it applies 1 stack of nature on the enemy, which is pretty useful to have to set up reactions like corrosion, which she heavily benefits from. Her combo skill is very interesting. It requires either 1 stack of nature or 2 stacks of any other element to do, which means this is a skill that is pretty easy to activate. This ability makes it so that enemies are imprisoned and susceptible. Imprisoned slows down the enemies drastically, while susceptible makes them take more damage. After a couple of seconds, the clones that are slowing down the enemy rush into the opponent and explode. Lastly, we have the ultimate. Arcane performs a domain expansion that summons a bunch of turrets in a grid around her. Every time she does a final strike, these turrets shoot at the target. And if you get this to activate twice, you get to shoot an even bigger laser at the target. As you can imagine, this does a lot of damage, but if you were thinking, man, I sure do wish I had a support instead of a DPS, well then do I have a surprise for you. Because this character is actually a 2-in-1 special. If you have more investment in will than intellect, then your abilities have different properties to them. Your skill now sucks enemies together, your combo ability now adds an additional stack of whatever element is applied on the enemy, and your ultimate adds susceptibility to the enemy, and a stack of what other element was on the opponent. As I've shown in both my yapping and gameplay, this character is pretty good. She's extremely versatile and was my go-to character as I explored this area filled with blight shades and hidden ink bridges. She has great nature application, and I built my team around corrosion since her passive buffs those reactions, and this allowed us to clear most of the enemies here with relative ease. I would recommend running this team, so that way you can get a nature damage increase and easy heat applications for Arcane to get corrosion on. But as we defended the Xianrite Nexus against the last of the Blight Shades, this marked the end of the story for Yinglong Pass and the end of our 4-person team comp, because now we were heading into the final area of Wuling, the dangerous blight-filled sector known as the Exclusion Zone, and we were going to do this only using Arcane. The Exclusion Zone is an extremely hazardous area, both because of the enemies present and its environment. It is incredibly gassy here, but luckily for us, we do have the Xianrite Nexus, which can help protect us for a bit of time. The first section of combat was against the weakest form of Blight Shades, so not too many problems were present for us. That would be up until the first containment rift. This area spawned in tons of hounds, and it was honestly a little overwhelming with many close calls. But luckily, I was in a support mode, so my skill could group up the enemies and keep them away from me. This helped us for most of the fight, up until the large Quill Beast Blight Shade spawned in. This enemy caused me a lot of trouble in the previous previous region, and since I didn't have 3 other people to help me, I knew this was going to be a problem. It did deal some damage to us, but luckily the imprisonment effect from our combo skill helped greatly here and allowed us to deal plenty of damage to it. Our next area was Tunjian Hall, and this was much more brutal than what we've seen so far. It had the same problem as the last area in that it was overwhelming because of how many enemies were here, but what made it different was that the Blight Shades took the form of warriors. This gave them swords and ranged attacks. Now, in addition to the dogs, we had to worry about combo attacks and ranged moves. And I wasn't even the only person to get overwhelmed here, just look at the cutscene.
I'm fighting for my life.
These battles took a toll on both my mental health, but also my stamina's health because my bar was struggling. The best way for me to get through this area was to remain calm and focus on as much of the larger enemies while my AoE damage took care of the small ones. I did take a lot of damage here, but thankfully we managed to survive with over 50% HP. Our last battle in the hall would be against Blitzcrash, who is kinda similar to the Quill Beast we fought earlier. However, this enemy was much larger and does do some different attacks. As I learned in the previous encounter, patience was a very strong attribute to have in these fights, and stamina management was becoming much more prominent, especially since I only had 1 HP bar to rely on. The best indicator I had to rely on was the red lines, because those were the safest ways to know when I could dash to dodge. This was a difficult fight to do solo, and I also think that this would have been a hard fight to do with multiple characters, since this enemy does have a lot of AoE attacks, and because Endfield has everyone out on the field at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if like Wolfgar got struck by lightning here. We can now make our way to the last section of the zone, but as we tried crossing the bridge, this brings us down into the valley of the exclusion area, and this was also the area that I had the most trouble with. Ignoring the fact that our first battle starts us with only 900 HP, there are also multiple enemies in this area that can one-shot you. Please listen to the game when they tell you to avoid fighting. You will want to avoid fighting as much as you can because it will help you mentally prepare for the next enemy that comes next as you ride up the elevator and enter the very last rift. Be sure to cuddle this cat as much as you can because this next fight is gonna be painful. This fight is one of the more difficult bosses I've had to do in recent memory. Its moveset is pretty relentless. It has attacks involving the sword and shield, and bows. You always need to be on your toes during this fight, and just landing counterattacks isn't enough. Normally in Endfield, you're supposed to use a battle skill or a combo skill during this red circle, and it knocks the enemies back a little bit. But for Alleikhreos, you need to be locked in, because counterattacking does not interrupt him. He will do these attacks twice in a row. This fight is a dance that you have to respect, because you can dodge the attacks by spamming your dashes, but he will catch up to you eventually and land some damage. The key to this fight is getting enough stagger damage to get him to half, because once you do, he drops the sword and you can use it to interrupt his next attack and stagger him back. But be sure to wait until he glows to use the sword, because if you mess up the timing, it will one-shot you. And yes, this was a fight that I messed up on numerous times, but it wasn't always because of the first phase. Yes, you heard me right, this fight has multiple phases. After a pretty painful 8 minutes, I brought the boss down only to find out that there was a new set of attacks to learn. In this phase, Alleikhreos keeps most of his moves, but this time he has a knife and wings. These attributes alone add more to keep in mind with this fight, especially when he does this flurry attack that requires you to dash twice, and you will get hit a lot until you learn this, trust me. But one of the trickier parts of the second phase is that the boss summons soldiers that mimic certain attacks, and this adds another layer of difficulty because now you have to learn more about positioning. In the first phase, you can just hug the boss and time your dodges, but now you actually have to find your way out of these traps, and you will have to learn because these are some tight openings and they can easily kill you. This happened to me when I was about halfway through the boss on its second phase. This boss surprised me, and I'm not ashamed to say that I died twice trying to do this solo. This was one of, if not the hardest boss I've had to do in a gacha game, but I would be lying if I didn't say I had a blast learning this fight, which made this victory so satisfying. In addition to Arcane and the 2 new regions, there's plenty of new content that has been added to Endfield with the half anniversary. I showcased the 2 new regions, but there is a lot of story to uncover inside them, and in addition to Arcane, Lena will be the next 6-star operator to join Arknights in this update. Additionally, there's some new updates to the factory that adds new functions, primarily related to gas. There's gas vents, extractions, transportations, facilities, environments, and new recipes that can be made. You can experience these new factory updates and the new chapters of the Wuling story exclusively extremely early if you want. Once you complete remediation progress, you can unlock the Wuling region and choose whichever story you want to do first. There's also a new permanent challenge mode with Echoes of War and tons of limited events, quality of life improvements, and rewards that you can get. If you play now, you can get up to at least 35 free pulls, a free 6-star weapon, and additional progression materials. This is the best time to start playing Endfield, and if you want to join and celebrate the half anniversary, you can download today using my link in the description and play on PS5, PC, and mobile devices. Thanks again to Arknights Endfield for sponsoring this video, and I hope you all enjoy.
Tell me why